Peter Baleke Kaira lives at the outskirts of a sprawling piece of land in Kaweri Mubende district. In 2001, more than 2,500 people were evicted from 4 villages by security personnel at the barrel of the gun.
The army was beating people, the army was kicking people, the army was killing animals, the army was looting property. The army was firing recklessly, live ammunition. The army set ablaze all the houses which were grass thatched. In the daylight, broad daylight. You had to run away to save life.
Uganda Investment Authority later gave about 2,500 acres to a German multinational Newman Cafe Group to set up the Kaweri coffee plantation.
It was a great setback. It is a very nasty experience that actually calls for tears when you remember it. It's nasty.
Documents show that this Kaweri Milo Land was privately owned by Emmanuel Buko Kayua, who sold it to government. Kaira and others petitioned court.
The RDC came. At that time, he was Perez Katamba. He was speaking in Uganda and Uganda. He was waving that letter like this. This is the letter you have written. Know for sure that we are going to evict you by force from here. And when we evict you, you will file a case, we understand? But I want to tell you categorically that the government has the power and the mandate to delay your case. And we shall delay your case for 30 years. By the end of which, some of you, the big-headed ones among you, will have died off. And the case will die a natural death. Those words were in Uganda.
On March 28, 2013, High Court Judge Anup Singh Chaudhry gave a verdict against the firm and awarded 37 billion shillings to the plaintiffs. However, on July 21, 2015, the Court of Appeal in Kampala set aside the judgment and ordered a retrial at the High Court by another judge. Today, over 100 residents are yet to receive compensation.
The offer that was made is dishonest. If it was an honest offer, I would take it up, because I pleaded to them.
Not even law enforcement can guarantee a safety net for these violent evictions. Like thieves under the velvet dark, several men descended on St. Stephen's Church in Indeba on the 10th of August 2020 and demolished it. Like the account of Ezra Twinomujuni, this church was stuck in a legal contestation on land with 2 claimants, but unlike Twinomujuni, the church had its day in court and it's still fighting to prove that its title was not fraudulently acquired. So what is precipitating conflicts on Mailo Land? Male Mabirizi, a Shylock and litigant who spends much of his time in the corridors of court, has in the past sued the Kabaka. He's one of the leading exponents of Museveni's views on Milo.
I'm saying that when you abolish Milo, land conflicts will end. They will be greatly reduced. And what will end will be merely boundary issues, but not issues of evicting people whom you have never leased land to, who don't have an agreement with you, but people who have been perpetually on that land since time immemorial. But because you went to Kampala and bought a land title from a disgruntled grandson, then you want to evict them. That is the biggest problem.
State Minister for Lands Sam Mayanja, an avowed critic of Milo Land, declined to speak to NTV as he faces a flag from the Mengo establishment. But his onslaught on the Milo Land tenure system has remained relentless.
Why don't you sit with this Milo owner, negotiate with him the value of the Bibanja which is there, pay him the 200 million. So it's now government land, which now the government offers the Chibanja owner a freehold title. Then he owns in perpetuity. Then he's now at par with every other Ugandan, every other owner. You have solved the problem of evictions.
It may be an advantage, but it's also a disadvantage. It is an advantage if the people in government are truth to themselves. But if they are not, you'll have problems.
So they want the land to be liberated, to be given to those big farmers from Europe and America, and the big ones for around this country.
So where is Milo Land found? Milo Land is largely found in central Uganda and some parts of Toro, and in Bukedi in what would later become known as Kakungulu's Milo, which covers Namanyonyi, Nakaloke sub-counties and parts of Bufumbo sub-county in Mbale district. Buganda Kingdom, the biggest owner of Milo Land, says the criticism towards Milo Land is diversionary and sinister. The institution has listed 7 grounds attributed to land conflicts across Uganda. They are increased pressure on land due to population, overuse of land, weakness in law enforcement, delayed justice in courts, politicization of dispute resolution, and
the corruption in the land office and inefficiencies is another factor. The position of Buganda is that instead of focusing on Milo and its history, and because it's a Buganda issue as the source of the problem, is a wrong approach.
The Constitution prohibits even government to take a property by force. Not only property, but also interest in property. But this is what happened. And who does it? The government, which is supposed to protect the people. If it were any other party, that would be different.
So the problem was not the Mailo Land. The problem was the government. In fact, all evictions are done by security forces, policemen and soldiers. You and me cannot go and evict 100 people from my Mailo Land. They will chase you. So it's the government.
fingers have always been pointed at the Lands Office, and as the sector drowns in the sea of forged titles and allegations of corruption, it is a real struggle to know who can be trusted.
And one guy came out with a piece of paper and said, I was going through my father's papers and I came across this document. Is it any good? It's a small piece of paper. When I looked at it, it had about 2 square miles. It was still valid, but he didn't know. And so what the people in land office do is to look for this land, and when it is valuable, they find a buyer and sell it to him. And that buyer spends a lot of money, as much as $1 billion shillings, corrupting the system. Now, this kind of person wants to get his money back.
Now, with the coming into force of the land information system, we are able to identify all these titles. And these titles are not in the system. These titles have been put out because you actually need now to explain to whoever have them, recall them with view of cancelling and keeping only the first one.
Before this national land information system came in place. So that is where sometimes forgeries are made. Where titles that reflected occupants are no longer reflecting occupants. So when someone is buying land, they look at the title and it does not reflect that an encumbrance. So the person comes and evicts because he will show you that, you know, this is my title. It doesn't reflect that there are squatters here.
The justice, law and order sector has also not been spared of criticism over the increasing conflict on land, and the police says the mess originates at the land office.
In the morning or yesterday you received a case of maintaining status quo. The status quo is not described because court never visited the locus. Now you find that in the status quo the person accused is the one having the ground.
While the army blames its involvement in what is essentially police work on bad apples.
Emphatically stating where it's happening, it's some people indiscipline perhaps on part of those individuals, but would like these pieces of land to be named such that we can carry out investigations to be able to lead to have the situation or such people addressed.
The judiciary attributes delayed dispensation of justice on chronic understaffing.
If somebody stays 20 years in court without justice, what do you expect? Either he will break the law by himself by taking it in his hands.
Now when you move around town, you will not come across any plot which is below 50 million, meaning they all end up in the land division of the High Court. Apparently it has 8 judges. Even if we told them to handle what is there without adding what is coming in, they will need over 10 years to finish what they have. If we are to be fair, land division would be having over 15 judges.
Perhaps Kaira's first port of call would have been the land tribunal at his local council village. But as lands expert Dr. Margaret Rugadia argues in her paper on escalating land conflicts in Uganda, the absence of these institutions has also created gaps that breed conflict.
Now they wanted to kill me. I got the information. I went into hiding for some time. After going into hiding, I felt the responsibility in me to organize the people for a court action. Since 2002, this case has gone to many hands. It has not been taking off, but we were persistent.
Landlords who own square miles of Milo land accuse government of harboring a scheme to strip them of their property.
Big people have been sold freehold title deeds over Mailo Land. So you have double title titling. When he goes to the bank to borrow money, they tell me, no, we cannot take your title because it is freehold over Mailo Land. That's fraudulent. So because they are powerful, they say, how do we solve this problem? Abolish Mailo Land.
My attempt to seek a response to this claim from Minister Sam Mayanja was futile.
Yes, so why shall I speak to NTV, which is just watched by a ministry of the population who are affected by the Buganda? Most people work NTV and Milo owners. So I decline your request.
Okay, fine, sir.
Evictions are mostly common in Buganda because of its proximity to the country's economic center. And as the city expands, the value of land increases every day. But this does not mean other land tenure systems have been spared, because the goodwill on which customary land tenure system is built is also under threat in northern Uganda and parts of eastern Uganda. And as Peter Kaira awaits for the court to determine his fate, he will also be eager to hear what the government is doing to ensure that what happened to him does not happen to others.
I have hope that we are going to win this case. And when we win this case, I have hope that we may overturn the stay of the investor on our land. And if we ever manage to do that, it will send a big message to those who want to penetrate into Ugandan land to start evicting tenants.
And whatever plan government is mooting, attempts must be made to calm the fears of those who are against the latest round of reforms. In the final part of this series, we'll be looking at the way forward. Edward Mhumza, NTV.